The guards on the walls of Paris first saw the ships at dawn. At first they looked like dark shapes moving slowly along the river, but as the mist lifted, dozens of long, narrow vessels appeared, their sails filled with wind and their dragon-headed prows cutting through the water. Within hours, the city would face one of the most terrifying Viking raids in history, led by a man whose name would echo through legend for centuries: Ragnar Lodbrok. By the 9th century, Viking raiders from Scandinavia had begun striking coastlines and rivers across Europe. Their longships were fast, shallow, and capable of traveling far inland. Towns that had once relied on rivers for trade and defense suddenly found those same waterways delivering armed warriors directly to their gates. Among the many Viking leaders of this era, Ragnar Lodbrok became one of the most famous. Some of his story comes from medieval chronicles, while other parts survive in later Norse sagas. Historians continue to debate how much of the legend reflects one real person, but several historical sources describe a Viking leader named Ragnar who carried out some of the most dramatic raids of the early Viking Age. One of the most well-known events associated with Ragnar took place in the year 845. According to Frankish records, a massive Viking fleet sailed up the Seine River toward the heart of the Frankish kingdom. The force was enormous by the standards of the time, with around 120 ships carrying thousands of warriors. As Ragnar's fleet advanced along the river, settlements were attacked and looted. Monasteries, trading posts, and small towns were particularly vulnerable. Viking raiders moved quickly, striking before defenders could organize an effective response. Eventually, the fleet reached Paris, which at the time was a fortified settlement built on an island in the Seine. The Frankish king, Charles the Bald, ordered an army to block the Viking advance and defend the river crossings. The fighting that followed was fierce. Viking warriors clashed with Frankish soldiers along the riverbanks. According to the chronicles, Ragnar's forces defeated the defending army and continued toward the city itself. With Viking ships controlling the river and Ragnar's warriors surrounding the settlement, Paris faced a dangerous situation. Rather than risk the destruction of the city, Charles the Bald chose negotiation. The Frankish king agreed to pay Ragnar a massive ransom to make the Vikings leave. Historical sources describe the payment as thousands of pounds of silver and gold, an enormous sum in the 9th century. Ragnar accepted the tribute and withdrew his fleet from the city. The raid on Paris became one of the most famous Viking attacks in European history. It also demonstrated that Viking fleets could threaten even powerful kingdoms and force rulers to pay enormous sums for peace. But Ragnar's reputation did not come from a single raid alone. Later Norse traditions describe him as a warrior who fought across many regions of Europe and led numerous expeditions. Some of the most famous stories about Ragnar come from Icelandic sagas written centuries later. In these accounts, he appears as a fearless warrior, a cunning leader, and the father of several legendary Viking figures. Among those said to be his sons were Bjorn Ironside, Ivar the Boneless, Sigurd Snake in the Eye, and Ubba. These figures appear in both historical chronicles and Norse traditions connected with the Viking invasions of England. According to the sagas, Ragnar eventually launched an expedition against Anglo-Saxon England. One story claims that his ship was wrecked along the English coast, and that he was captured by King Gley of Northumbria. Later accounts describe Ragnar being executed by being thrown into a pit of snakes. While historians debate the accuracy of this story, the legend became one of the most famous endings associated with any Viking leader. What is historically clear is that Viking armies soon launched a massive invasion of England, known as the Great Heathen Army. Many later traditions claim this army was led by Ragnar's sons seeking revenge for his death. The invasion reshaped the political landscape of England, leading to the fall of several Anglo-Saxon kingdoms and the rise of Viking-controlled territories. Whether every detail of Ragnar's story is true remains uncertain. Medieval sagas often blend history with legend, and the Viking Age left relatively few written records from the Scandinavian side. Yet the raid on Paris in 845 is well documented, and the reputation of Ragnar Lodbrok continued growing in both European chronicles and Norse storytelling. For the people who lived during that era, the arrival of Viking ships could transform an ordinary morning into a moment of terror. Coastal settlements and river towns across Europe learned that danger could appear suddenly on the horizon. The Viking Age was not only a time of warfare. It was also a period of exploration, trade, and migration that connected distant parts of Europe and beyond. But leaders like Ragnar Lodbrok became symbols of the era's most dramatic moments when fleets of longships carried warriors across seas and rivers in search of wealth and glory. When people living along the coasts or rivers first saw the sails of those ships approaching, they knew something had changed in their world. The North had sent its warriors south, and history would remember their arrival for centuries. Thank you for watching this look at one of the most feared Viking leaders in history.